welcome to all the participants of today's AI webinar. It feels nice to have you all here, and we thank you for that. A bit about the House of Sultan Chand first. Pioneers in the field of book publishing in post-independence India, we cater to students from pre-primary to university level, churning out over 600 regular titles, besides adding new ones to our stable year after year. Known for competently written, elegantly produced, and reasonably priced books, our publications are widely prescribed in reputed schools and colleges across the country, as well as in some neighboring nations also. Our authors are distinguished academicians, professors, and educationists with vast experience and expertise. We are proud to be associated with them. I now introduce you to the host of today's webinar, Dr. Sachin Gupta, author of the hugely popular Artificial Intelligence textbooks for classes 9 to 12 and Data Science books for classes 9th and 10th. Dr. Gupta is Dean, Research and Innovation, Maharaja Agrasen Institute of Technology, Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University, Delhi. Besides, Dr. Gupta has also been HOD Computer Science Engineering and MCA Department, Dronacharya Group of Institutions, Deputy Director and Head, Computer Science Department, Chandraprabhu Jain College of Higher Studies, affiliated to GGSIPU, Delhi. With a teaching experience of over 23 years, which includes teaching undergraduate and postgraduate students and researchers, Dr. Gupta's academic pursuits have been fairly meritorious, winning him several awards, distinctions, scholarships, including the Certificate of Academic Excellence by GGSIPU. Dr. Gupta has also contributed to various journals, conferences, and books for schools and higher education, both nationally and internationally. His achievements are truly commendable. I now invite Dr. Gupta to take you through today's session. Thank you, Dr. Sachin Gupta.
Thank you so much, sir. I hope I am audible and visible,
Yes,
everyone. So this was a session on request, more like that we had in coming after the last session that we had on neural network. And after that, several teachers actually requested that we want a session on data storytelling. This is a fairly easy topic. I just need to understand what are your challenges, because that is what I'm going to cover during the session in the chat window. The presentation is as per my choice, but I can flow it as per yours. So please keep on the chat window while you are going through the session. Let me know anything that you want to ask about this, and we will take it from there. So what data storytelling? I mean, CBSE books have got two themes which are very prominently visible. One is that they would be talking of data, whether it is data science or artificial intelligence. And secondly, they have prominently mentioned sustainability development goals as the data sets to be used in a lot of examples, practicals, and so. So what I have tried to do is I'm trying to integrate that where do we pick the data from for these data storytelling reports. There has also been some change in the previous way we were talking about data. So that also I'll discuss. But first of all, everything that we visually see is not a data story. So you have an infographic on the screen. This talks about that how often do people gardening or do yard work, and there is a diagram that basically gives you a soulless infographic. There is no key message, there is no logical flow, there is no question that we are answering. It's just a collage of facts. So this is one of the most common mistake that several of us do, that we will create or we will equate a data story with an infographic that might not give us justice to this specific concept. So we are going to discuss what is data storytelling, uh, what does data storytelling look like in when we talk about sustainability development goals, and how to tell data stories. So first thing first, uh, the question that starts every debate is, does data speak for itself? Most often than not, the data can't tell you a story by itself. Data gives you what, but only we humans know the why and the so what, that why this data doing something, or what is what is it telling, then so what happened. So the second thing is, numbers are boring, people are interesting. This is something that we have to keep in mind while cultivating a data story. We need to look at the numbers, but we also need to understand the life behind those numbers. This is specifically true for sustainability development goals, as we are going to discuss later. Scientists say that human brain is not a logic processor. This is a very contrarian statement, so several of you might disagree. But human brain is not just a logic processor. We do actually are simulated by numbers and facts in the language processing areas of the human brain. But our brain processes stories much better. So stories simulate not only the language processing area, but also the areas that help audience experience the story. The neuron pathways are considered to be more activated when we are talking about some facts, including a story. So, storytelling is, it has always been the way people have transmitted knowledge through throughout in India. Specifically, when we talk about Vedas, Puranas, something was of the form of that, it was always transmitted in the form of storytelling. Even when there were no written records available, it was kept passing to the generations, but because of the stories. So in simple terms, when we talk about data storytelling, it is a multidisciplinary process that would combine the results of one is data analysis, the second is a narrative, the third, it presents the combination of data and narrative in text and visual, which would be able to inform and engage the audience. So there would be a combination of design principles, imaging, there would be context for communication, that what are we going to talk about. There is a very good narrative of language and messaging. And finally, the hero of the story is the data that is going to inform the story. The four components we are discussing would be context in detail, that who are we targeting this story to, and what are the communication goals that we want to achieve with the story. The second is that how do we structure the story? What is the message that we want to convey eventually? What language would we like to use? How do we structure it? The third is the design. How do we visualize and create diagrams that would be required for the story? And finally, and the foremost, that if we are talking about data, then where is this data coming from? We have to explore the data also to understand what is it representing, and finally analyze it to take gather insights into what this data can represent as a complete story. There is this was something that we had in earlier CBSE book, that Chris DM. In fact, it is available now also. So there is a data science process that starts with a business understanding, or it starts with a question, a problem statement kind of, that what are we trying to explore. After that, we understand, gather and understand data for this problem statement, which can actually solve the business problem that we have. After that, we go for preparing the data, we clean the data, pre-process it, make it suitable for it to gather insights. We convert it into a model, evaluate it, deploy it, and then reiterate the cycle to see how we are going to get better and better with every iteration that we are going to use. So CRISP DM is an iterative and cyclical process. This is non-linear. This would be every time you find the deployment stage, every time you may revisit either the question itself, or you may want to add more data, or you may want to make the data better by preparing it better. But all in all, the process is a very well established industry standard, which allows people to uh, present a business problem uh, as a simple problem statement, collect data pertaining to it, and then create a solution which would be able to solve that problem. This is what we had earlier. This time, what we were additionally introduced to was the Freytag pyramid, that is the narrative arc. Freytag pyramid is a way of storytelling only. So while Chris DM deals with a business problem statement, which would eventually be a cyclical process, Freytag pyramid is a classic narrative structure. This is for storytelling all throughout being used. It is used for movies, it is used for advertisements, it is used for anything where you want to emotionally engage the audience through a logical journey. Starts with the exposition that introduces the context, setting, initial situation. So in the data stories, it will be equivalent to providing the background and establishing the relevance of why are we working on this story. Then we start with the rising action that would be development of tension as complications arise. This is something in movie that happens that you start with a very good plot, then something happens because of it tensions or complications arise. Then there is a climax, and then there is a falling action that everything goes better, people go back to home and gives you a lesson kind of thing. But with data stories, we would be in rising action, explore patterns, we will reveal challenges, what are the problems with this, and then we build towards key insights. So climax is the most significant insight into a story that is going to give us uh, a complete picture of what the data represented. After that, we explore the implications of the key insight, and then we would follow it up with recommendations and actions, call for action based on the insights that we have given. So this uh, Freytag pyramid is now being used for data storytelling in our book. It creates the emotional engagement, provides a very clear structure for complex information that how should we structure the narrative of our story. So I've tried to create a diagram which actually allows you to overlap both the things for SDGs. So we would be starting with a business problem statement and eventually reach a climax with the solution to it. But during the rising part, we would be able to clean the data, prepare it, create a model, and then we are going to find a resolution to the problem that we were talking about. Okay, so data storage comes in many forms. This was one very popular question with the teachers asked that what is the kind of thing that is expected from us? Are we expecting a report or are we expecting an article or a presentation or an infographic? So a data story may be anything out of this. It's not necessarily a report. It can be a very well written article or a presentation or infographic, can be a chart, can be a website, and it can be even more because the purpose is not just to present it in the form of a report. The purpose is to make a problem statement or pick up a problem statement and provide insights into it so that people can make uh, some judgment based on the insight that we are providing. So this question should be always answered for all the students that whatever they present, they would be able to present in the form of a well-written story, which can be any of these. So we have an example from Save the Children report from UN. I have it available as a source. So when I share the slides, you can get around the link. But see how the infographics are superimposed with serious messages over the images of the children, which actually resonates with people who are looking at the imagery. At the same time, there is a sincere message coming on above it. So 3.1 million children live free from violence, 6 million people followed up social media, 6.4 visit the website, and 1 million people in the US are supported by Save the Children company. There is another report by World Patent Organization which simply looks at that how patents were applied after 2011, after 1990s. Transportation and communications were overtaking all the fields, and artificial intelligence applications emerged in 1990s, and after that there is no looking back. There is so many applications coming through them. So this was the WIPO Technology Trends 2019 report, and one single image is a very powerful story in itself. That is the kind of power the data stories hold. Any questions so far? Okay, previous session. Thank you so much. Then, what does data storytelling look like in SDG reporting is the second part of our agenda. SDG content is dense and heavy by nature. I mean, there is a lot of data which is in the form of numbers, there is a lot of data in the form of geographical indicators, a lot of topics, and a very large number of terminologies. So I just want to see you the SDG data catalog. This is I am going to pass on in your chat window also so that you can check it out and you can use it later. So SDG data catalog is an open evolving global database of all data sets which are relevant to SDG. So there is one research paper, but this is what the interesting part is. So if I'll pick up data set like clean water and sanitation, goal 6. Related to goal 6, there are a lot of data sets which they have made available. So let us go to global and region statistics. Okay. Now, there is one data set which you can select. And this goes to all of the locations that you can pick from here, maybe a single one, but we can get a free access to this specific data set here. Not much happening in this one. Let us look at the global hunger index. Okay, so this is for SDG 2, zero hunger. They create a map for crop monitoring all over the world. In addition, there is the metadata that what is the data talking about? 5-year average yields. The coverage is global. The spatial regions are subnational regions. 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer granularity and so forth. And you can access the data by the data provider available here. You may be able to choose which specific country you want to take in. Then there is yet another tool that you call it the our world in data. There is a data catalog, and it gives you not only just the data, it also gives you the stories along. So for food and agriculture, the share of people that are undernourished, you have a beautiful graph here that shows you details pertaining to all of the regions of the world. Those who have submitted the data. Sometimes there would be no data available because some country has not submitted the SGG data as of yet. So you see that for each of the countries, if you want to filter by which countries are we looking at, they give you data. There is a map. there is a chart, and the students can pick up data by downloading. So they may want to present not just the images, but they can download full data set with other zip file, which you will be able to. This is JSON data. So that is CSV again, which you can use for your own data stories. So there are two or three different ways. There are data sets available on Kaggle also. There are data sets on SDGs available on a lot of places. And it's not necessary that we take in SDG only. So there is AI for good. Okay, the same one, right? You'll be able to find the data sets here. Then search for climate data sets. You would get it on NOAA. There can be data sets for emergency, disasters, and a lot more. So the question would be that what are we trying to portray, or which particular question we are going to answer through this, right? For each one of them, there is documentation. What are the some samples available? Global hourly data of the climate stations and so forth. So if somebody is writing a data story on global warming, they would be finding the data from NOAA. Right. Moving on ahead, SDGs have a very broad audience. Whereas the people who are interested in would be media, government agencies, international organizations, general public, civil society, businesses. So this is our second part, that who are we creating this story for? Are we creating this story for academia or our school? Some students who want to understand this topic better, maybe the civil society or the government agency. That would become a part of the question, because understanding which audience are we talking about is going to be very important for a data story. Then these are the questions which you would be asking. Who are the audience? How is the data story relevant to them? Why do they need the information? How will they use the information? And what role do they play? Are they capable of making a decision? We might present them a different set of statistics. Are they capable of just influencing or information gathering? Then we might give them more infographics about the statistics. Then what data is available that would support the storytelling, or even if there is availability of data, that would be a bigger question. So I tell my students that it's always necessary to understand, is there data available first of all. If there is no data availability, please do not pick that story. But first find that yes, there is data available, then only confirm the project that you are going to work with. Right. Then what do you need your audience to do with the data story? How experienced are they with the data and story? Are they laymen? Are they fluent? That is going to be yet another question. And finally, when we are crafting the story, we have to think about that what do they care about in the story? Are they interested in the micro data or the details inside, or they just want the data which is a view from the top? What are the key figures, key messages, or guidance on how to understand statistics and insights? There are two genres of data story that we'll see. One is informative, which is usually used for media, for instance. So I told about that there can be a lot of different audience. So for media, you would usually write an informative story. For people who you want to sell to, you would write a persuasive or a marketing story. But SDG data stories somewhere lie toward more towards informative, but yet they are persuasive. They have a call of action. They have something which allows people to take a call on that. What should I do? Because I have seen this data now. So they lie somewhere between informative and persuasive stories. And this should be more of every data story that our students should be able to write. that it should be informative, plus there should be some action or some call to action that our story may do. Now, uh, for the SDGs, our objectives are two kinds, immediate, because we want to have informative plus persuasive both. So we'll be looking at what are the present patterns and trends, share insights and observations. These are the immediate objectives because the SDG goals are now covering data from past 10 years and covering up to 20 years, or the goals are targeted for 2030. Some people are even talking 2045. So we have to see that after doing this, we have to influence perceptions also and we have to generate action. These are the long-term objectives of any data story that we are going to write for sustainability development goals. I'll just take a pause, look back at so far for questions again. Nobody wants to ask that how do we create a graph or how do we uh, create an infographic or nothing. Okay. So SDGs, you need to take move from data analysis, just the first part that we have been traditionally doing up to class 9th and 10th, and we have to get down to top-down process, making meaning highlight what and so what, that what was the data that we are getting, and because we are looking at this data, so what action should we take? So there is one example that talks about OECD Better Life Index. This is available as a SDG data goal. Right. So it starts with a background. There is some information. There is some graphs. Okay. There is another story that's the form of an infographic about women to learn the fact, rural women and girls. Then there is a graph on one side. Then what should be the top theme component of ours? Should we be focusing more on infographic? Should we be focusing more on the title? Should we be focusing more on the story? And that comes in how do you tell stories in SDG reporting? So there are two basic rules. One, keep it simple. There should be a crisp storyline. There should be a key message, less than three arguments, and we should write a very clear, powerful title. Second, we have to bring a perspective. So present insights identified as the data show what and so what. These questions are going to be essentially important. So when we relocate a story, we have to identify trends and patterns. Always do a comparison with what was happening earlier to what is happening now, or what is happening now to what may happen later. We have to look for correlation, that why is this happening, because is it because of our actions today or is it because of some action that we may later take, and check on outliers, that is there anything which is standing out in the data set that we are overlooking. So here is a story, something like proportion of children under age 5 who are affected by stunting from 2000 to 2020 in a percentage. So comparison, we wanted four things. One is identifying trends and patterns. Second is draw comparisons. Third, for look for correlation. So trend and pattern says we compare global 2020 with global 2000 to highlight progress. The comparison is that we are taking Oceania, Sub-Saharan Africa, Central and Southern Asia, and the rest. And the reason why we are doing it is because our children more vulnerable in these regions, so they demand more attention. And there is an outlier. Oceania is the only region that has higher stunting statistics in 2020 than in 2000. So for all of them, there has been a reduction. But for Oceania, the New Zealand and Oceania region, there is something that is increasing. Why is it increasing? That becomes our storyline, that becomes some interesting statistic. So that is an outlier which gives us an idea of what our story should cover. Okay. Then there are some data sources that I mentioned. So the United Nations SDG indicator database is one of them. Then this is the SDG tracker by World in Data. They talk about all of the SDG goals. Then the third is there is the World Bank SDG data set. It gives you sustainability development index for all the databases. There are 86 data sets available, uh, which we can choose from. Then there is UNICEF SDG data, which is for children. This can be particularly good. You can choose country profiles, select India, for instance, in here. I don't know whether they submitted the data for the last set or not. And we can see child well-being or child-related indicators. How many children are bullied each year? Like that. So literacy rate, we can filter by country. We can do a comparative analysis of country by country. So if you are just searching for, yeah, so you get the under 5 mortality rate, population, trends in under 5 mortality rate. Why did this decrease? If there had been something, an outlier, we could have targeted that. So you can talk about education data sets, net attendance rate. We created a story about that. How did the education or the number of students enrolled in the government schools increased immediately after the midday meal scheme was launched? This is a part of our textbook also. So for that, we took in a data story where we saw that there was a very clear correlation between the students were given midday meals at school and the enrollment immediately jumped up, even for the girls. So prior to that, there was a lot of part lagging. So the boring part that we see, we can see the selection in Excel or CSV, but you can make it interesting by picking up the data from years, check the sliders, and then you can just download the data set in CSV, and you'll be able to open the data sets again. You can even go to the data set, where is it actually located from. So that's about the data sources. Yes. So you would have a preparation workflow where you would find and assess credibility. How good is my data set? Who is giving the data set? This is the one reason why I'm not using Kaggle data sets here, because uh, this part becomes a little tricky. That is the data credible when we are talking about data stories which are about the world. You have to document and clean the data set, prepare for visualization, and the best practices include choose charts that fit the story. So I will also take you to data with catalog. This has been covered in earlier classes also, that if you have to search by function, that what do you want to show? If you want to show comparisons, or do you want to show proportions or relationships or hierarchy? What do you want to show? This is my first question that I love. But if I want to show a comparison, then which specific data set or charts can you prepare? So with an axis, you may make a bar chart, right? Without an axis, you may make maps like this, a donut chart or a heat map or parallel set. If my data has axis, that it is about two indicators which relate to each other, I would be most likely create a scatter plot or a bar chart or a bubble chart. Otherwise, I may be using some diagram from D, right? For each one of them, you would also have examples. So for a bar chart, for instance, they would show you what is the data. They would show you what is the description. They would also show you some example of how do you create or how do you use. So it is used for comparisons and patterns. Similar charts, you may have a histogram. What is the difference? What is the anatomy of how do you create a histogram? So first thing that you would always look for is that what do you want to show would be the part of your uh, infographic or part of the chart that you want to take in as a visualization. Correct. And then you can club them in the form of a dashboard. We always use color contrast for clarity. We have to avoid clutter and highlight only trends and caption and source every visual that we want to take. So for the no poverty data set, we can have an exposition. I mean, just trying to associate with the Freytag pyramid. So the exposition was nearly 700 million people lived in extreme poverty in 2017. COVID-19 pandemic pushed an additional 97 million people into poverty in 2020. Right. This is the first part, that crisp and DM understanding what is the problem or what is something that we are trying to highlight. What was the status quo prior? The rising action is the extreme poverty declined steadily from 36% in 1990 to 10% in 25. So we see there was a steady decline happening, but suddenly in 2020, there is the COVID happens. Immediately the poverty rises again. So this was the rising action that we talk about. The climax is for the first time in a generation, global poverty is increasing. So sub-Saharan Africa will have 9 out of 10 countries with the highest poverty rate by 2030. This was never happening prior to this. Then there is a following action that countries require targeted social protection system, especially for children, elderly and vulnerable groups. Current program reach only 47% of the world population. That is a story coming from data. This is for SDG 1. And finally, our denouement contains that we have to invest in targeted social protection now with sustainable job creation and resilient infrastructure in the vulnerable region. So, along with that, we are showing what are the poverty rates by region in 2022. We also show the social protection coverage by the income group. So, these three graphs are good enough along with the story that we want to create. Right. I take a pause. Please ask there any questions you have to ask. You can speak, you can open your mic whenever you want to. So, this was our changing face of global poverty, right? But we have now taken to both the parts that we use the CRISP-DM approach to bring in the data, clean it, pre-process it, convert it into some visualization, and then we fitted a story that was related to this. So from 1990 to 2025, the data set is share of population living in extreme poverty, and from that data set, the storyboard is created. So for writing a story title, you'd have to follow the SMART rule. This again forms a part of our books in several places. We have to talk about that my data story title should be specific, it should be measurable, it should be action oriented, relevant, and time bound. Can somebody recall what was the SMART rule used in our books for? Put in the chat window. Thank you so much. Is there anybody who can recall what was the SMART technology used for or the SMART rule used for previously? So many teachers teaching artificial intelligence. SMART was for goals. In the employability skills, we always talk about SMART, that every goal that we talk about should be specific, measurable, action oriented, relevant, and time bound. And now we are actually looking at the smart rule to write a data story title, because this is the one of the most foremost, the best way that I found that would be good for writing a story title. So you should have a clear, powerful title which reduces the cognitive load on the audience. Just try to compare with specific, measurable, action-oriented, relevant, and time-bound with all this. So this year may prove even worse for tourism industry than 2020. This is measuring something. This is very specific. This is talking about timeliness, everything coming in here. Writing a key message is what is at stake? What will the future look like? These are the two big questions that you ask. How does it compare with the past situation and trends and patterns? Then provide all essential information: who, what, where, when, why, and how, and show the meaning of data, highlight the insights identified in the data. We'll take up two examples. So one is for global preparedness for monitoring the board report.
ये मुझे बस थोड़ी सी
कीड़ा पूरा
Yes, Ash.
फिर
डॉक्टर ने अपने हटाल की दवाई दी थी लोशन ले क्रीम ले
तुमने लगाए
I think somebody has their mic
तो
open.
ये फिर खाओ इलाज करो। ये देखो ये काय पे सो रहा है यार, बताओ ना कृष्णा मैं क्या करूं।
Okay.
ये अपने डैडी की संग जाएगा रहने, ये उनके यहाँ रहेंगे, वहां पे इसके मजे ही मजे हैं। ये कहेगा ये ऑर्डर कर दो, वो ऑर्डर कर देंगे पढ़ने के लिए।
I might have, Ashish sir, you might have to mute them. Sorry for the interruption.
Yes, sir. Done.
So we are looking at global preparedness monitoring report. So a powerful key message with an insight. The second year of the COVID-19 pandemic had been marked by profound inequalities and a failure of leaders to understand our interconnectedness. So this statistical finding said that 63% of those living in high-income countries had received at least one dose of COVID-19 vaccine. In low-income countries, however, only 4.5% people received a vaccination. So this is the kind of report that we see through the graph. Okay. There is another article from New Yorker that says that which are the noisiest neighborhoods in New York, complaint times from people by the day of the week. See, there is less complaint in this zone, but towards the weekends, the complaints increase. Then distribution of complaint type by the hour of the day, that is again a graph. What is the type of complaint? Loud music, construction hours, and so forth. And which neighborhood are these complaints coming most from? This was the data report that was made available. So when we structure a data story, we have to use either an inverted pyramid model or a pyramid model. We may start with the essential information, then add supporting details, and finally add a conclusion. Like the Gates Foundation report says that millions more are in extreme poverty. Check out. They start with a lead story that says 31 million more people were pushed into extreme poverty by COVID-19. Then it says that women continue to be disproportionately affected by COVID-19's economic and social impacts. And finally, they give additional information that women's employment is expected to remain at 13 million jobs below the 2019 level, while men's employment is expected to recover. So this was the inverted pyramid model where we start with essential information only. That means the broad theme, and then we give a supporting detail, finally give a conclusion based on this. So if you have to structure a data story using a pyramid model, we may start with the key message, add some core arguments, and finally give some supporting details. For an example, this goes to something like this. I'll give you the story and the structure both. So the key message is the ocean is vast. Okay, that comes as the title of your story. The first argument is that only 20% of the ocean has been explored. This becomes first key parameter in my story. Most of it remains unexplored. We keep on filling in all details. The second argument is 91% of the ocean species are yet to be specified also. So this becomes one of the argument. But in that case, I also add some more details that from coral reefs to polar seas, there is a lot of diversity happening here. And the third argument is that the 1 billion people rely on fish to live. There is yet another detail that the most traded food in the world. So this is the pyramid structure where we start with the key message. Put in usually three, it may be more than three, but ideal is that you should have three or less than three arguments when you are creating a compelling story. So this becomes a story that we all want to bring to the people along. And then there are general writing tips like you put your key message first. One paragraph should have one idea. Start a paragraph with a topic sentence. Short sentences, no more than three sentences. This is true for any presentation that we are going to use in here. Right. And we have to tell the student that there is going to be difference that whether we are writing for the web, which is active content, where the data may change, which is interactive, or whether the content is print, which is passive and linear and slow. So I also created a presentation for data storytelling. I'll have to check out whether I can find it very quickly or not. But that was for web. So the content has to be active and interactive, that you should be able to have clickable elements, fast, concise, or complete and fragmented. So there are some features of how to convert your print material for the web. This would not be much interesting, but this is the interesting part, that you would never say that there is one specific way of data storytelling. You may be telling a story through a diagram, that how much we ate over the years is, uh, let me see if we can capture this open. Okay, lot of stories there, but you can pick up any one which inspires you, and this would be able to give you some way that 2.6 billion of grants cancelled by the government. Who was getting how much grant from the government of United States of America? What is being affected? That is being shown as a storyline, and they keep on giving in a lot of stories about different parts of the world. So they pick up the one news every week or two news every week, and they create a visual story around it. So you saw United States actually bombed Iran using bunker busters. So they created a visual story along this. They are showing a graphical method in New York Times. They create a compelling storyline, a visualization which goes very long to show how is their story fitting the narrative. Next, the second part was that we may create a story from 538.com. Okay, they changed it. They were acquired. I'm sorry. You would not be able to find this. This is behind a paywall now. So you would have to work with the previous one only. They just got acquired, right? But you would find a lot of stories that are available in the newspapers every day. You can tell our student that why are they projecting a graph along with a news article? That becomes a data story that you can follow through. So finally, we have to think beyond storytelling. You have to set the communication objectives upfront, develop the narrative before visualizing data, not after. Connect with the audience and promote and advocate for your data stories with a plan. That would be essential. Right. I'm opening it for any query that you have because we have 5-7 minutes remaining before we close the session. So in case anybody wants to, okay, how to use shape wordle? Is this coming as a part of our curriculum somewhere? Let me Google shape wordle one.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, actually, in Sultan Chand, the book, it is given that some AI-enabled data storytelling tools. So I just wanted to know how to use this tool. I never tried it, Shape Wordle. Like it is a technique to enable the creation of shape-bounded wordles.
I am just
And we
searching.
fit the words to give a particular shape. So I'm not getting this actually. So I just
Okay.
wanted
Uh,
the
uh,
practical demonstration, if you can.
this is Wordle. Actually, I got confused because Wordle is a game that we play.
Okay.
It's like a five-letter word that uh, you have to get something. What you are asking about is something that we call as a word cloud, maybe. Okay. Whenever we are dealing with, please correct me if I am wrong. If there is something still there, something like shape wordle, I'll try to find it. But word clouds are essentially used for data storage. You will see a lot of time people write these word clouds to see what is the most prominent, most frequently occurring word in the set of data that we are looking. So for data analysis, like data, method, package, model, PLS, regression, variable, these are the words which are having more. What people talk about teamwork.
Uh,
Yeah,
Sir, it means it is something like searching on the basis of keywords.
it is not searching on the basis of keywords. It is more like that when my data is purely text. See, numbers have a different way to be represented. Correct?
Okay.
I may represent numbers in the form of uh, you may say graphs or charts, or there are a lot of ways to represent numbers, statistical pictures. But when it comes to text, then how do we see which words in a specific paragraph or a story are most impactful or are most useful or have been used majority of the time? So that is unstructured data in which the only way we do things is that we have to either use TF-IDF or we use a something like a word cloud where the word cloud talks about. So see, this is somebody created that what people have been talking about on a social media in the past few months, right? It's
Okay,
something
sir.
that you can give it a unstructured data and it would be able to give you some information which you can see that these words are the most powerful or most important in there.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, any more? See, when we are trying about writing about data stories, you would be able to see that Orange tool also gives you a very good way of creating graphs which are useful. So that is yet another tool which you would be able to use for writing data stories because now we are teaching our students to write, take in data, analyze it, convert it to a machine learning model without having to write code. So if you are dealing with students who are not very good at writing code, Python code, they can create their stories using Orange also, their projects also as well. But depending on if a student has matured beyond Orange and went into Python, they can use visualization tools like Matplotlib for their purpose. Okay. Any other question? I think not. So I'm just going to leave it at one key information finally, that writing stories is hard. Writing compelling narrative stories is very hard. So for your students, this might become a bigger challenge than you as a teacher. But kudos to all the teachers. You have already been using storytelling for very long, because every session that you teach, every class that you take is almost a storytelling in itself. You prepare your lesson plan that for the first 5 minutes I'm going to do this, for the next 15 minutes I'm going to do this, then the later 10 minutes I'm going to do this, and finally I will ask the student to think, what did you learn? What were the insights that you took? Your each lesson plan is a story in itself. So you can always give them examples of your classroom, that how do you create a data story every day when you are talking about some topic in a classroom. Yes, you do get. Okay. Uh, you do not, if you want to say manage conflicts in a story writing, it's not your job to manage conflicts. The job of the writer is to write, simply write. They have to present the facts and figures.
Sir,
You
actually, sir, is students are at the standard of 11th and 12th, and if they are not very good in literature, we have to little bit guide them to writing the story. We have to give some example. So I just need to know one or two example that how to manage conflicts. Means just for an example, so that I can tell the student and they can take it as an example, and they can manage it. Means they can get some tips through it.
see, in the textbook, what we did was, uh, we took a story once that was talking about the rise of waterborne diseases in Delhi every year. So every year after the rain, dengue and malaria and other diseases were rising in Delhi. We took in some 10 years data. We saw graphs through it, and we saw that the graphs plotted across the month, so from January to December, it was almost always showing a very sharp rise in August, September. So they could picture that immediately, that yes, these are waterborne diseases, or these are rising because the mosquitoes breed in this season. So that was a story that we could give to the government. Similarly, uh, please make it very clear that these are not basically based on literature. They would be more based on, you have to collect some data. So the student might actually be able to collect data on the basis of that, who in my class is using Instagram for how many hours, how are their grades being affected, are there outliers who are using social media much and at the same time scoring very good scores. They can use collect data of which chatbots are you using, which chatbot do you find good for reasoning, which chatbot do you find good for writing. So they are something which they can relate to very easily. Right? And Nirendra sir is asking, should the student be asked to prepare web stories? Nirendra sir, very well so, very much so, because with tools like Claude/Chat, they would be able to create a data story even if they do not know how to write HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So please make them use the AI tools for writing web-based data stories. They can simply show it to you in the form of a web page, which is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript based, and they would not have a worry about how to present. Okay, I see. Okay, you can see a simple page can be hosted. There are a lot of websites, including Netlify, Vercel, GitHub, where they can post static pages. I host my, because as a student, they have access to GitHub Pro. If they have an official school email account, they can go to education.github.com, request for a pro account. They do get it immediately. And on GitHub Pro, every repository can be converted to a web page. then they can use Netlify or Versal, a lot of free hosting websites. Right, that's my time, I think. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. You all will get your certificate of participation very soon. You have my LinkedIn available. I'm sharing it again so that if we are not connected yet, then we'll be able to connect as well. So this is my LinkedIn for all of the people, wonderful people who have joined the session today. Thank you so much. Keep reading, keep learning, and please do let me know what do you want to cover for the next session on the WhatsApp group so that we can prepare for that.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta, for this informative session, as always. Let me inform the educators that more such sessions are in store. We'll share the details with you well in advance. For your information, our AI books, Decoding Artificial Intelligence for classes 9 to 12, are widely available now. Thanks once again for tuning in. Have a great weekend. Thank you.